In just a moment, I'll press a spokesman at the Democratic National Committee who claims President Trump's ties to Russia are already, on day 26, a scandal bigger than Watergate. Overreach much? The man who runs what the DNC calls the Trump War Room will get a chance to make his case. Also, for decades, American presidents in both parties have been pushing a two-state solution to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But today, in the matter of just a few seconds, President Trump suggested a whole new approach that has gotten the mainstream media doing yet another hissy fit. But is it a good idea to bring some fresh ideas? I'll go one-on-one with the Democratic congressman who's here live tonight. But first, a quick check on all the late-breaking news out of the Trump administration today. For more on that, here's Fox News correspondent Trace Gallagher. Good evening, Trace.
Good evening, Ed. President Trump says the real scandal in Washington is that classified information is being illegally given out like candy, a criminal act he blames on the, quote, un-American U.S. intelligence community. The president talked about government leaks during his joint press conference with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump focused on a string of damaging news stories that relied on mostly anonymous government sources involving information gleaned by U.S. intel agencies. Those leaks, of course, resulted in the departure of National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Watch.
I think it's very, very unfair what's happened to General Flynn, the way he was treated, and the documents and papers that were illegally, I stress that, illegally leaked. Very, very unfair.
Trump also went after the New York Times for alleging that several Trump associates had connections to Russian intel agents. Also during his news conference with the Israeli Prime Minister, the president said he's not committed to the creation of a Palestinian state. The so-called two-state solution has long been a pillar of the Middle East peace process. But Mr. Trump says he can live with a one-state or two-state solution. And the president appeared to startle Netanyahu when he dropped a bit of a bombshell, asking him to curb construction of settlements in Palestinian territories. And finally, Carl's Jr. CEO Andrew Puzder has withdrawn his nomination as Labor Secretary. Puzder was up against major opposition from Democrats because of his stance on labor issues and the fact that he employed an undocumented housekeeper. But it was Republicans who sealed his fate, telling the White House that Puzder did not have a viable path for confirmation. Ed.
Trace, appreciate it. President Trump has been in office for less than 4 weeks, but if you pick up the front page of the Washington Post today, they claim the White House is already in, yes, crisis mode. Tonight, a Democratic congressman is actually talking about removing Donald Trump from office. And then there's the DNC. Its senior advisor, Zach Petkanis, is charging the Trump-Russia connection, as you guessed it, already bigger than Watergate. Zach joins me live. It's good to see you. You seem to be a calm, reasonable guy.
My mother thinks so.
And I think so on the surface. But why this hysterical charge on day 26? This is bigger than Watergate.
Oh, I don't think it's hysterical. Let's talk about the facts. We know that a foreign government has interjected itself in our election to help Donald Trump win.
And we knew that weeks ago.
Yes.
That they interjected themselves.
But what we didn't know is that the Trump campaign senior officials were in communication with the Kremlin, not just the Kremlin, the intelligence services that were actually working to help Donald Trump get elected.
Okay, and we've heard that for a long time.
No.
We have. And I want to play the full context of what you said earlier on Facebook Live. Watch this.
I'm Zach Petkanis, director of the Trump War Room here at the DNC. Over the last 48 hours, the press has confirmed what many of us already suspected. Donald Trump and his aides have repeatedly lied about their contact with Russia. And now, the American people are witnessing one of the biggest political scandals in American history. This is bigger than Watergate.
Okay, and look at what you said in there. You said President Trump, not just his aides, President Trump has, quote, repeatedly lied about contact with Russia.
That's correct.
When did the president lie?
On January 11th. At least on January 11th. On January 6th, Donald Trump
Okay, what did he say on January 11th? He had a news conference, and afterwards people shouted at him.
And afterwards, he was asked whether his aides had contact with the Kremlin, and he said no. And that was 5 days after he received an intelligence briefing that said the exact opposite, where the FBI and the CIA informed him that, in fact, his campaign and senior aides did have contact with intelligence officials.
And so contact.
It was 5 days after. And it's not only Donald Trump who lied.
Yeah.
It's actually Mike Pence who lied as well. On January 5th, on January 15th, he was asked the question whether campaign aides had communication with the Kremlin. And he said no. And again, this is after January 6th, when he was a part of a briefing where it said the exact opposite.
And the Screamer story in the New York Times today that laid out these contexts you talk about said, and let me quote it directly, the officials interviewed in recent weeks, intelligence officials, said that so far they had seen no evidence, Zach, of such cooperation. So you may have the Trump administration on contacts. Okay, but there was no collusion.
And that they lied.
Okay, so let's concede that maybe Donald Trump didn't, and I'm not saying he did, but on January 11th, he suggested there was no contact, and you're saying there was contact. I'm still not seeing this as bigger than Watergate.
Well, I mean, let's be clear about how this scandal has unfolded. When we first learned about it in July, it was just that the Russians had interfered in the election. It wasn't that they had helped Trump. And then we learned it was in fact that they did it to help Trump. But it wasn't that there was any communication between the Kremlin and the top aides. And then we learned that there was communication between the Kremlins and the top aides. So this is where we currently are in the story. And what we need to do is we need to find out more information, which is why we need an independent, transparent investigation that can start to get to the bottom
investigation,
of this.
But there are Democrats talking about impeachment. I'm still not hearing Watergate. I want to make two quick points. Robbie Mook, the former Clinton campaign manager, was on CNN. I'm going to summarize it. He said there are parallels to Watergate, just as you have. It seems like talking points are going around. But CNN themselves, we have a full screen here, said, quote, Trump aides were in constant touch with senior Russian officials during the campaign, but officials emphasized that communications between campaign staff and representatives of foreign governments are not unusual, that this is not unusual. That's what CNN says. And then let's look at the list of what happened in Watergate. And then I'm going to give you as much time as you need.
Okay, because you're missing a piece.
Okay, a total of 69 people were charged with crimes. Crimes Act. 48 people and 20 corporations pleaded guilty. Some of those convicted were major players, the Attorney General, the White House counsel, dozens of people. We have a whole list on the screen there. So you have CNN saying it's not unusual for there to be communications between the campaign and foreign government, any campaign, number one. And number two, the New York Times themselves, in this screamer of a story, said today, there is no evidence of collusion. How is this Watergate?
What you are missing here is that they also said that what is unusual is the frequency of the contacts, as well as the level of the aides, the seniority of the aides that was in communication with Russian intelligence agents. And let's remember that we are just at the beginning of this scandal that's unfolding. There have already been 3 resignations from the Donald Trump operation.
3 resignations
because of
General Flynn.
We have General Flynn. We have Paul Manafort, who because of his connections.
He said today that he didn't that he spoke to one Russian official and that it's being exaggerated. He didn't resign over that.
Well, good thing this White House.
But hold on, you just said he resigned over this. He did not resign over that. He got pushed out of the campaign.
He absolutely resigned over it.
He didn't. He says he didn't. Who's the third one?
I'm sorry, but I'm going to press this point. Paul Manafort resigned amidst the FBI closing in on his communication and potential coordination with the Russians. That is a fact.
Here we are months later, and we haven't seen anything from the FBI Manafort. Maybe something will happen. Who's the third official? You said 3 officials
simply not
resigned.
true. And then there's Carter Page, who was a foreign policy advisor who resigned during the campaign after meeting with Russian officials who were under sanction, including the Russian official who was supposedly in charge of intelligence gathering on U.S. elections.
Okay, so I want to go back to something important you said a moment ago. You're throwing out all kinds of things. You're saying there should be an investigation.
But yes.
No, but you're saying it's bigger than Watergate, and there should be an investigation. There's already several congressional committees that are looking at this, including Republicans like Lindsey Graham, who's not exactly a friend of President Trump. But I want to make another important point. Democratic Congressman Earl Blumenauer today formed a panel to look at how to remove a president from office. And it said in part in The Hill today, Blumenauer said he became concerned about the amendment's potential shortcomings after growing worried over President Trump's behavior. He pointed to Trump's claim that there was sunny weather during his inauguration when, in fact, it rained. What is going on in the Democratic Party right now? If the president says it was sunny, but it actually rained, are you ready to remove him from office over that?
I'm going to let Earl Blumenauer speak.
So do you disavow and you say this is a silly excision by a Democratic congressman?
I don't know anything about that committee. What I do know about the committees that we do need, and those are independent investigations, something that Senator Graham said that he was open to, and that is a select committee, a bipartisan select committee that is formed specifically to investigate these.
So let's say that tomorrow the Trump administration somehow magically says we're for an independent, bipartisan investigation of all of this.
Amazing.
The Democratic National Committee has already come out and said it's bigger than Watergate. So you've prejudged that investigation, haven't you?
The investigation has so much to uncover. For example,
but so much to uncover. You've called it bigger than Watergate before it's uncovered anything. The investigation hasn't even fully started.
Here's what we know the investigation is doing, that the CIA and the FBI are investigating. They're investigating whether the Kremlin is funneled money to the Trump campaign. That's one
whether
of the things.
they did.
Yes, no, that's exactly true.
Here's my bottom line point. I'm acknowledging to you, let's point out, for example, a Republican senator today, Bob Corker, a Republican, said he's tired of the dribble of President Trump's Russia story. He said, quote, all of it is concerning. All of it is very concerning. I'm acknowledging to you there are senior Republicans like Bob Corker saying this could be a problem, but could be. You're out there. I'm going to give you this is the last. Before anything happens, you're shooting first and asking questions later. You've prejudged the man 26 days into his administration.
We know too much already. We know that his actions are pro-Russian, and that's extremely weird.
How has he been pro-Russian? He said things that you think are pro-Russian.
He's defending
He's been in office for 26 days. What has he done to help Russia?
Regime on TV.
What has he done to help Russia in 26 days?
He's eased the sanctions on the intelligence community in Russia.
He hasn't removed the Obama sanctions.
I mean, he has eased the sanctions on Russian spies. He has attacked NATO and the European Union.
General Mattis went and said NATO's a very important alliance.
He
is that right?
NATO. I believe it's a very important alliance.
He attacked it in the campaign.
Donald Trump
General Mattis,
doesn't
the
believe
defense secretary, said NATO's an important alliance.
He also made moves today to potentially remove support from NATO. That is playing into Vladimir Putin's playbook. That is doing his bidding. That is not standing up to Russia.
There's one thing that I'll acknowledge, that Donald Trump is not cooperating with one entity, and that's ESPN. President Obama used to turn over his brackets for the NCAA Final Four, and today the White House said Donald Trump will not do that. Will you soon be asking, when did Donald Trump know about March Madness and what did he know about it?
That's a scandal that's bigger than Watergate.
Okay. I appreciate you coming in.